Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to the farm biologics component, and I'm going to hand that off to Camilla.
Okay, so this part of the manual is actually on section 3, starting on page 3. I'm just going to do a very quick overview. You're going to be collecting 2 types of samples, so milk bulk tank samples from tanks when they represent 75% of the lactating cows, and milk filters that represent 1 milking cycle, and that could be more than 1 filter depending on the size of the dairy. And also you'll be collecting 6 environmental samples from cow areas. And all farms are eligible for both the milk tank and filter and environmental sample collection. That has changed from earlier on when only, when all farms, well actually we started out with 380 farms and it's sort of changed over time, but it looks like we'll have funding to do all of it. So that's why all of them will be eligible. Also there will be no Thursday through Saturday collection for these samples, and that's to allow the labs to receive the samples in time to do the work that they need to do before the weekend. So please do keep that in mind. So this is just a brief overview of the samples and also what they will be tested for. So the environmental fecal samples will be shipped to ARS, a lab at ARS, and they will be tested for Salmonella, Campi, and E. coli. And the isolates that are identified will also, and Campylobacter, sorry. And the isolates that are identified will be of the Salmonella and Campylobacter isolates will then be forwarded to NVSL, and they'll do serotyping on the Salmonella and also antimicrobial susceptibility testing on the Salmonella and the E. coli. The Campylobacter isolates will also be susceptibility tested at ARS. The bulk tank milk and filter samples will be shipped to the Van Kessel lab at ARS and will be tested for Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, and Campylobacter. And also one of the samples will be shipped to a lab at Cornell, and they will test it for Salmonella Dublin. NVSL will do serotyping on the Salmonella isolates that are identified, and we will share the results of these this testing with the producers, as much of it as we can. I can't remember it exactly. At least the Salmonella, and maybe Jason wants to jump in there.
Yeah, Camilla's got the asterisks on this slide of the organisms that we'll be reporting back. We won't report back the serotype for Salmonella or any of the species, and antimicrobial susceptibility comes in quite a bit later than the did they have Salmonella or Campi. We won't be reporting back E. coli.
So you'll have some more detailed instructions about the sampling in the manual, and so I'll just go over quickly the kits and what they contain. The kits do not, and any of the kits, the calf kits or the farm kits, do not include gloves. So if you would like to have gloves, you can contact Abby, because we have a whole lot of gloves here. They are latex gloves, and they're one size. But if you do need gloves, let Abby know, and she'll send you some. So the farm milk kit has a label on the box that says FM. That's for farm milk, and those kits are numbered. So we'll be tracking those numbers. As you can see in the picture, they contain three conical tubes for the milk and a syringe to get the milk out of the tank. And also there is an insemination pipette that you'll use with a syringe if you have a tank with a manhole cover. And those will be shipped separately, so you'll have to request those from Abby separately, and they'll come in packs of 25, I believe. The farm fecal kit is just very basic, has a few Whirl-Pak bags and some spoons to scoop up the samples with. You'll sample 6 sites for each of the 6 samples. And there are more detailed instructions in the manual, so I won't go over that here. But if you have any questions, please speak up. If you have any questions right now, just interrupt me, and Jason can try to answer your questions. So the important thing to remember is the farm milk kits are numbered, and the farm fecal kits are not numbered, but they will. So you will use the labels that come in the farm milk kits, and there are labels in the farm milk kit for the fecal samples as well, or the environmental samples. So, so when you go to collect the environmental samples, make sure you have labels for those samples with you. There are some typos on one of the label sets. There will be 2 label sets in the paperwork for the farm milk kits. And we discovered some typos after we had assembled them and shipped them to NVSL. So the new set, the good set that does not have typos on it, is attached to the back, so it shouldn't be a problem to see which one is the correct one. The one with typos has a black line or cross through it, so it should be pretty self-explanatory. But again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. There are videos on the different topics of biologics on SharePoint, and we'll try to get those on the website too for those of you that can't access SharePoint. There is a video on the environmental sample collection, on the different CAP, measuring the height and weight. Jason might have mentioned that already, etc. So those could be helpful. So please do check that out. And also the lameness scoring video will be available. That's pretty much everything I had. If there are any questions, please let me know. Any questions? Okay. Well, like
answered
I said,
all their questions.
Well, it may just be so confusing that they don't know what to ask yet.
Amen.
But do feel free to email or call me anytime.
Now, the result of the milk test, all of them go to the producer, including the serotyping, or serotyping are not going to produce?
The results will just be yes, no, whether it was isolated from the samples or not. It'll be similar to what we've done in previous studies. Sometimes the serotyping and the antimicrobial resistance takes months to get done, and I'm not sure that's real helpful for most producers anyway.
So they will not be getting antimicrobial resistance information?
Right.
Okay.
Why that would not be helpful to producer?
Why? Well,
I mean, producer can share with this veterinarian and get some advice or something. Am I wrong on that?
I'm not sure that collecting, and Chuck Bossler's here, he's more of our antimicrobial guy than I am. I would just say that collecting fecal samples, composite fecal samples from a pen, and doing serotyping and antimicrobial resistance patterns might not correlate well to individual cow treatment decisions.
Yeah, but the combination of that and the milk, because they're also testing antimicrobial resistance for bulk tank sample also, right?
Right, but you're still looking at it as overall as a herd level, and if producers feel strongly and want that information, I'm sure we can provide it. I'm not sure how useful it would be, but if you have producers that want it, let us know, and we can provide that. It just may be months down the road. That's I think another big downside is that we're using herd level information to potentially make individual animal decisions, and then the time delay. We know that salmonella, for instance, tends to come and go, and so what's happening during the sampling may not be even remotely similar to what's going on 6 months down the road. Cyrus, if you have somebody that's interested or producers that are interested, let us know. We'll do our best to get that to you. It just won't be as quick as helpful.
Will that information be relayed back through the coordinators to the producer?
Yes, all the results go back to the coordinators to give to the producer.
That's what I was thinking, because of the confidentiality, and it'd have to go back through the coordinator, right?
And I didn't mention for the calf component, our plan is to do quarterly reports that'll go back to the producer that shows how the calves that we've sampled have done, provides all the biologic results and the growth information. And then at the end of the study, the plan is to put together a final report for each farm that it would include that for all the calves, but then also some comparisons like Nina mentioned yesterday of how their farm compares to other farms in the study. So we just can't obviously do really a comparison until the study's completely over for the calf component, but we can provide the sample results and growth information as we receive them. And those will be quarterly. All right, any other questions on the biologics?
I have one on the manual.
Okay.
In tab 2 on page 9, it says there's 3 dairy computer software programs, and it's about all that. And the producer...
Oh, good point. I have that listed, and I forgot to bring that up. So,
well, I have yet to find the producer cheat sheet.
Well, that's because you haven't received it yet.
I see.
Let's bring that up. What the producer cheat sheet is, and this brings up another thing too, but what the cheat sheet is, it goes through each section of the questionnaire and what information they may want to have available to answer those questions. So for instance, if we're talking about milking procedures, they may want to have the name of their teat disinfectant that they're using, so that we can either put it into some kind of disinfectant category or write the name of the teat disinfectant down. So it's meant for them to have ahead of time, ideally, so that they can kind of have that information together, so when you get there to do the questionnaire, they can just pull that information and fill out the questionnaire. But that brings up a question: how many folks would send a pre-survey letter to their producers that would include the cheat sheet, or how could we get that to the producer before you go out to do the survey? Any suggestions, or does anybody send out a pre-survey letter, or do you just get the information from NAHMS and then call them and set up a time to meet to do the survey, or do you go out and talk to them about what it entails and then set up the time to actually complete the questionnaire and do the biologics?
it sort of depends on how close they are. If they're ones you drive by all the time, I usually stop in and talk to them, and set up when it'd be convenient for them. Or other ones that are an hour and a half away that I don't get by, I call them.
Okay.
I think in the past I've sent out some pre-letters. I can't remember exactly, but Mike just let them know that we're coming and thanking them for their, thanking you in advance for your time to listen. So that's all.
Okay, so that's what we were thinking probably would be the best. Either a mail, or if you're going to stop by the farm ahead of the survey just to talk to them and see if they're willing to participate or not, that would be the best time to hand off the cheat sheet to the producer. So that, like I said, would have the information that they'd need to answer the questionnaire. But also we've gotten actually instructions how to go into PC DART, Dairy Comp, and DHI Plus to pull out some of the health-related information, and maybe I guess that's primarily health in this questionnaire, and some removal information, so that maybe we could get a little more accurate data from those folks that are keeping it but may not know exactly how to access it, because as Frank talked about yesterday, it doesn't have anything to do with reproduction or milk production, so it might not have a standardized way to get it out. So if somebody has a letter that they've sent out in the past and would be willing to share that with us, that would be nice to look at and maybe share with some of the other states. And then we're still waiting for a set of instructions from one of those computer companies to get back with us. I suspect I'll have that by the end of the week, and so by middle of next week we should be able to send out the cheat sheets to you.
This is Tim in Wisconsin. The other thing I guess I was thinking, a lot of the farms we're contacting now do have email. And one thing you can do when you set up your phone conversation is, if they have email, you could email them the cheat sheet as an attachment if there's an electronic version of it.
That's a good suggestion. Yep. So there's three ways we can get it to them before the survey. I think that just having that little piece of information, we did this in the NAHMS survey, but I haven't gotten feedback of how helpful it was. I think it could reduce the amount of time that you spend on farm going through the questionnaire if they kind of know what information they need to have ahead of time. And it's not, I think the biggest piece of the VS questionnaire is really health, which it should be. And that's either going to take some time digging through some of the records. And why don't we wait till we get to that part of the questionnaire, but we'll kind of go through our thoughts on why we shifted a bunch of things from NAHMS to VS. And that was really in response to some of the coordinators' suggestions that we had.
Well, this is Lori Harrison, Idaho. One note, is that 2 hours for the survey? I did one of the practice ones. That's 2 hours minimum. And that was a medium-sized dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you went through it, did you just do it like it was a regular survey, or because we did it, we approached it a little bit differently in terms of, we didn't ask them to answer the question. We just said, could you answer this question, or is it clear? And so it took us quite a bit longer, but we assumed that's because we were...
I did it as a regular questionnaire, and then if he had comments, I wrote in the margins.
Okay.
Whatever his comments was, because, I told him, I said, you get to give your opinion, and he opened up considerably. If he didn't like the question, I wrote down he didn't like the question and why.
Yep, and we appreciated all that feedback that we received. So we have down here that it's an hour and a quarter. I think that yeah, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. The way that sometimes those numbers are averaged out is they consider the non-response too. When OMB assigns or helps us assign that number. So depending on the producer, this very well may take 2 to 3 hours if they get to talking. The goal of the cheat sheet is to reduce that by whatever time we can. I think a producer that had all his records together and they were just focused on going through the questionnaire and answering the questions, I think probably an hour and a quarter, hour and a half is pretty reasonable. I had to fill out I filled out essentially 6 questionnaires for some training we did with NAHMS, and it was taking me about an hour and a half, and I was trying to make them consistent. If it was a small farm, trying to put in answers that would go along with that type of operation.